is very calculated, very brave, and very independent. And I believe that those qualities, I've been able to adopt from a young age. And it's given me a superpower to just always stay humble, but massively hungry. And I love to inspire and push people to accomplish amazing things in their life. So that's in a nutshell, man, kind of where we came from. And that gives you a little bit of an insight into my inner workings. I don't accept it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another great episode of Beast Nation, the second highest rated podcast, according to Yahoo News, Yahoo Finance. A lot of people call me the Robin Hood of knowledge because I bring information from people like our next guest, Ben Muresan, and I share it with people that need it the most. This gentleman is just absolutely amazing. Young, successful entrepreneur, multi-millionaire, and author of a wonderful book that we're going to talk about today that I've actually read. I want to introduce to Beast Nation, Ben Muresan, the humble CEO. Hey, buddy, how you doing today?
Hey, Brad, I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure. It's always great to talk to successful people, successful entrepreneurs, kind of get in their heads and really share the secrets with other people, because I truly believe, I've seen it in my own life, success does leave secrets. You know this and I know this, but unfortunately, a lot of people out there don't know that. And so my journey really is to, share your story, share the secrets that you've learned in your journey with other ordinary people so they can have, much greater success in life. So to get started, obviously what I like you to kind of do is go back in your journey as an entrepreneur, maybe even start kind of where you did, with your book, and talk about, how you came over as an immigrant, basically fleeing communism into the United States, and how that's affected you and kind of also inspired you to do bigger things with your life.
Great. Yeah. I mean, my story is a long one. It's a very powerful one. I come from a place of communism, from oppression. My parents didn't have the choice to practice freedom of beliefs, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. So my dad was very much persecuted for his belief system, his faith in God back in the communist society that just wouldn't allow for it. So dude, it's a big shit show. We're back home. My dad can't practice his faith. He can't really do anything because he's labeled as a Christian. So he can't go to school. He can't get a good job. So he's got to just do whatever he can to provide for the family. And he has 5 children. He's working as much as he possibly can. And it got so bad even at one point where the communists in their ideology wanted to pay off the national debt. So a story goes where they used to shut off the hydro at about 8 or 9 o'clock at night in the middle of winter so they could conserve energy. And you can imagine that all the stuff that they were doing was really at the expense of the people's health, the people's sanity, the people's freedom. So they had no heat. We had no heat. We tried to huddle around in the evening time. And my dad, being a very resourceful young man, he's probably 26, 27 at this year. He's got 3 or 4 little kids. And he decides to get a couple of metal parts together from work. And he welds them together and creates essentially kind of like a little wood stove in his apartment so that we could heat the one room so that we wouldn't be freezing in there. And that's the kind of society we come from. So in that kind of mindset, there's no really such thing as privilege. It's just a matter of being thankful for what you have in the moment. So I grew up with this very much humbling sense that there's always somebody out there who's hurting more. There's always somebody out there who's doing better. And if you simply stay hungry enough, if you simply push hard enough, if you simply live with an attitude of humility and humbleness, you can accomplish amazing things. I believe that regardless of your circumstance, regardless of your oppression, you truly get to dictate where you end up at the end of life. You can decide to be resourceful, opportunistic, and dependable like my dad, and just make moves that other people are too afraid to make. Or you accept what you have in your oppression, you accept your scarcity as a victim mentality, and then you live your entire life as a victim instead of as a victor. So that's how we started. My dad, he made a decision to escape the country. So we illegally fled on foot in the middle of the night. Took us 3 days, and people were getting shot, captured, all sorts of things, because you can't just leave a communist country. You can't get a passport, a visa, nothing like that.
Right.
So he had 5 children at the time, and he decides that he's going to run for it. And it was the hardest decision of his life. And with 5 children, he could only carry 1 or 2, and I was the oldest. So he made a very difficult decision to leave 2 of the kids with the neighbor, with the only thought that at some point, if he makes it to the other side of the finish line, at some point, a world organization like Red Cross would step in and try to reunite the family if he somehow achieved a refugee status in the country of Austria. So we ran on foot. We hid during the day. We ran at night. And within a couple of days, there's a whole story, which is what the book kind of details. But we landed in a refugee camp, and we found asylum there. And it wasn't until 8 months later, approximately 7-8 months later, that we were reunited with my brother and sister on the same day that my youngest sister was born. So in the morning, they had 3 kids in the refugee camp. In the evening, they had 6 children reunited and thanking God for every moment of their lives. And that's where we come from. And I was 6 years old. So starting with that life, man, it's hard to take anything for granted. It's hard to be entitled. It's hard to look down on people regardless of their circumstance or financial situation. But what it does is it instills this fight in you that regardless of what's in your way, you push it aside and you keep going. You never stop. You keep pushing. So I inherited the best from my parents. My mom is extremely generous, kind, thoughtful, very much an action taker, very much gets restless if she's not doing awesome things. And my dad is very calculated, very brave, and very independent. And I believe that those qualities, I've been able to adopt from a young age. And it's given me a superpower to just always stay humble, but massively hungry. And I love to inspire and push people to accomplish amazing things in their life. So that's in a nutshell, man, kind of where we came from. And that gives you a little bit of an insight into my inner workings. I don't accept mediocrity. I don't accept failure. I think failing is part of the journey. Failure is a choice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And there was a lot in that message that I want to kind of unpack, kind of like you peel back the layers of an onion, because one thing that I have seen and witnessed, not only as a coach, but also just, here in Houston, which is the 4th largest city, of course, in the United States, a big melting pot for people from all parts of the world, is that there's something I believe in the immigrant that comes to the United States, which around the world, of course, is looked at as one of the best countries to be in, capitalist society. But your journey coming from a communist nation is very different than somebody else coming from another country that's not communist. Do you think that it hardens you as an individual and kind of gave you what I would call that grit or maybe that fight, where I feel that sometimes for entrepreneurs, you get to such a low in life that you're backed up to a wall, and I mean, great things happen, right? You hear about Anthony Robbins, who was extremely broke, who literally was making macaroni and cheese and washing clothes in a bathtub in a cheap ass apartment before he hit it big with his first book. But I think that there was probably something in your life that was a defining moment that hardens you kind of as a person. Do you believe that there was a defining moment in your life? And if you do, kind of where was that? Was it in your childhood or was it as you got older?
I think adversity calluses the mind to accomplish phenomenal feats beyond ordinary expectation. That's what I think. I think it's a series of defining moments throughout my life that shaped me who I was. There's this adage that, between 2 or 1 to 6 years old, you're kind of identifying your belief systems and you get to know, kind of what's available. And then from 6 to 12, you really define and develop your own belief systems. And then that's what kind of leads you down life. I believe it was a series of things. When we land in the refugee camp and I see reuniting with my brother, it was a massive hope that anything is possible, regardless of the circumstance. My dad comes to Canada, and as a young man, he's got 2 and 3 jobs here. He lands up in Toronto. He doesn't speak the language, doesn't have really anybody here. He's starting from scratch, and he'll do whatever he needs to do to put food on the table. And, a couple years later, he's got 9 children, 3 jobs. My parents are always working 2, 3 jobs. As a young man, even as a young teenager, I was in charge of taking care of 5 or 6 siblings at a time. Like, hey, you stay home, you take care of them. we're going to go and go to work. So I think adversity is a phenomenal weapon when you decide that it's a weapon, but it takes personal development and it takes a certain level of cognitive realizations to understand that it's a weapon. You can either let it defeat you and bury you in the ground, or you can decide to use it as a massive fuel for your growth. So I love adversity. And I know it's tough to say, but you get hungry when you've got adversity. When you get backed against the wall, you have two options, fight or flight. I believe the general population is just too damn comfortable. That's the problem. They're too comfortable. They never trigger the fight or flight mechanism. Yep. They're always in this limbo between, I want to dip my foot into the water of entrepreneurship, of business, of relationships, of whatever. And I want to just kind of play around and figure out what I like. And there's so much of my feelings involved. Like, we didn't have a choice to have feelings. Like, good feelings, bad feelings, get your ass up and go to work. Good feelings, bad feelings, provide for your family, provide for the things that matter, and fight for what you believe. So, dude, I think it's a powerful, powerful thing. And you can never take that from somebody. A person who has overcome adversity and turned it into a weapon will combat entitlement in an amazing, prosperous way that you can never understand. So the immigrant struggle, I think you can let it be a struggle, or you can let it be the immigrant adversity. And that component can really fuel you your whole life. It becomes bigger about money, bigger than just your ego. It becomes about what's actually possible in this world, and how far can you take one generation. That my dad grew up in a village of 8 people with no running water. And I'm sitting here in beautiful Canada, among the top earners in the country, and we have everything we could possibly want. And it's not about gloating. It's not about bragging. It's about, it's possible. So you have a choice. Where you draw inspiration from, you have a choice. But, I've seen the 4-minute mile, the Roger Bannister effect, where I see somebody who's doing it, and I'm thinking, if he can do it or she can do it, why the hell can I not do this? Right. And that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and I want to really unpack that, because it's unfortunate that most people do not understand the way the brain is wired to think. It all gets back to a very primal part of the human brain. Neurologists call it the reptilian brain, because it's something that we have that's very common in reptiles, but it really is exactly that. It is the fight or the flight. Imagine that, you're out in the jungle, you're some animal. You got 2 choices, right? If you're actually staring down a big lion, you can either stand there and fight, or you can run like hell. And it's also, of course, the pain and pleasure center of the human mind. Tony Robbins says that most of the decisions in our lives are driven by 2 things, pain and pleasure. It's too painful to go work out today. Why? Because I'm going to sweat and I'm going to be tired as hell. Or it's too painful to start a business. Why? Because I might fail. What you hit was the nail on the head, though, and I really want to dive into that, because, Coach Michael Burt talks about this thing called prey drive, right? It's the ability for somebody to be internally motivated. And I agree with what you said earlier, and that is that most people in society are complacent. They're comfortable. They get to a point where they're making their $80,000 or their $120,000, and they got a decent home, and they're driving their Toyota or whatever the hell they're behind, and they get food on the table. And you and I know, because we've been successful, I built a multi-million-dollar oil company. It takes a lot of hard work to build something great. Most people just don't want to put forth the effort.
Well, I think it comes down, let me just touch on that. It comes down to something which is compromise. I was, I'll be honest, man, I was 40 pounds fatter. I made excuses about my weight. I was too busy, too entrepreneurial, too focused, too priorities, blah, 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 all this crap that doesn't mean anything. And then I got on, I met Sean Whalen, had him on the podcast too. And, I started getting into 75 hard. And if you guys don't know, it's Andy Frisella's workout program and mind conditioning program. And I just realized that, it's not that people are even just too comfortable, which is obviously the case. It's that they've literally given up. They have zero control and zero discipline over what they want. Is that they've compromised somewhere somehow, and those daily compromises eventually created massive compromises in their lives, and that's what they've accepted as their life. Because when you're 3 years old, you didn't dream about making mediocre money and driving a mediocre piece of crap car and living in a neighborhood where your kids are scared to go to school. You didn't dream about that stuff, but somewhere in your life, with enough compromises that you made throughout your schooling, throughout your early adult life, I'll accept this, I'll accept this, I'll accept this. And as a result of that, now you've accepted a substandard living that even you're not happy with. And the only way that I think people, they justify that is now they got to turn over to a whole different mindset of complacency, of boredom, of freaking Netflix every day, all day. Like they have to find distractions to basically remove themselves from the fact that they lost their identity because they were willing to compromise their values somewhere in their life. And I think that's where it comes. It's a systematic, like a displacement of where your identity is. You're breaking it down, and then you've got all these fragmented bits of who you are, and you're living this crappy life that you don't even like. And it's so hard to just flip the switch, because just as progressively as you declined, you've got to progressively now increase, and you've got to take the daily consistent action to fix your mind, body, spirit, relationships, and money. So dude, I think it's gradual, and it's gradual back up, but you got to make a distinct choice somewhere where you go, I need to start moving this way and stop losing the game.
I totally agree. You know, it's funny. I was on a coaching call earlier this afternoon with somebody that started in my coaching program, and then due to COVID, called me back in April, said, hey, you know, my company's shutting down. I'm unemployed. I can't continue making my payments. And so I'm going to have to quit getting coached. And I said, well, let me tell you, number one, you're not going to quit getting coached because I don't need your money. You're going to stay in the program. It's just that I'm going to give it to you for free, and I'm not going to charge you. How does that sound? He said, wow, I'm surprised that you'd even consider doing that. And I said, that's just the kind of dude Brad Blazer is. I said, you need me more now in your life than you realize. The funny thing is he became disengaged, didn't show up, missed calls, wasn't on the accountability calls. It's like the dude just disappeared. A week ago, he calls me and says, I'm ready. He said, I will find a way to make my payments. And so I sat down with him and I said, before I swipe your credit card, I want to know what it was that got you to call me. He said, I got to a point where I got so low, I said, I finally admitted to myself, I need some help. And I said, you're the dude that can actually do it. And the funny thing is that so many people, like you said, Ben, become complacent. They sacrifice a life of greatness. And having everything, like you said, they dreamt of when they were 6 years old, 8 years old, you know, hey, I want to have that Ferrari. I want to live in that mansion. And then they get stuck on that treadmill. Yeah. Now, I know in your organization and with the companies, of course, that you built, that you also coach a lot of people to success. Yeah. What do you tell people that come to you? Is it more about changing habits, or is it more about changing beliefs? Because I believe that one will actually drive the other, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you know what? These conversations are so valuable at a high level. I hope that your audience really listens and it dissects this instead of in one ear and out the other. So we've got thousands of people in the coaching companies in different segments and structures. There's a couple things I realized about the individual. Number one, when it's free, it's not valuable. If I give it to you for free, you will not show up. You will not do the work. And just look at that example everywhere in your life. If you pay top dollar for a t-shirt, you're likely to wear it a lot because it costs something. If you get it for free, you're probably not going to wear it that often. Maybe even you're going to toss it away. It can't be free. Free doesn't mean anything. When somebody comes and says, I want you to coach me for free, you're never going to do the work because you're not bought in. Until they cost you time, energy, and money, until it costs you those things that you really value, you're really never going to put in the effort because you're really never going to feel the pain. The more money it costs you, the more seriously you take it. So I tell 100%, I would rather somebody come in and say, listen, man, how much do I need to pay? And the answer is, how seriously do you want to take this? How fast do you want results? And how aggressively are you willing to commit to the result and the journey that you're about to embark on? Mentorship isn't about you skipping levels and you skipping the road bumps. Mentorship is about having somebody who's been through the road bumps and can help you navigate those so that you can get over faster with less damage, but you still have to experience the things in life that you're trying to avoid. So the first thing is, it can't be free. And we've got a group that we've got thousands of members, and that's a free like information gathering group, and people come into that, and it's like, well, I'm not getting results because you didn't pay.
Right. No,
I made this mistake, man. I made this mistake because the first few years of my business, I'm trying to flip houses. I'm trying to start a janitorial firm. I'm trying to do all this stuff. And because I got burned, which is my own fault, by a $40,000 program when I was 23 years old, I felt that the whole mentorship coaching industry was out to get me. What I didn't realize was there are plenty of people that have perspective over what I'm trying to accomplish, that know what I don't know, and I can keep running in circles in this maze, or I can ask somebody to look at my business completely objectively and say, you're missing this, 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 and this, and it's not possible for you to understand what you're missing because you're so far in the weeds, you have zero perspective. Exactly. So in a roundabout way to get to your question, the way we think about everything shapes everything we do. It's that simple, right? So if your internal dialogue, like basically you're driven by a set of beliefs or awareness. I think perspective is such a massive thing. If you only have this much perspective, your beliefs can't be bigger than this. All right. My daddy's now a minister, and he broke it down like this. He says, everybody has hope. Hope is the ideology that something somewhere somehow will materialize into something substantial. But until you add movement, it can't be faith. There's nothing faithful about you thinking about a thing. Right. Where faith comes in is, I have hope that I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to start working towards that goal. I'm going to fight the obstacles that come. And in the movement, in the engagement of that activity, I'm going to drive at that result. Now I have faith. Right. Otherwise, it's just hope. So I think a lot of people have a lot of hope, my friend, but a lot of people are so afraid to commit to the smallest piece of movement, and yet they lack faith. And when they lack faith, they lack everything else. They'll never take any action. So you got to change the way you think. You know what? You got to change it. And everybody's got a different trigger. Everybody has different things. Some people can hang around other people that are successful, that think differently, and they'll absorb. They're going to absorb some of that mindset and some of that awareness. They want to see that it's possible. We live in a world where you go to a job and you guaranteed $20 an hour as long as you sit there and you do your 8-hour work. What that did, though, is that level of conditioning has forced people into wanting to see and wanting to prove it's possible before they take any action, which is counterintuitive to faith. Right. As a business owner, man, there's no guarantees. You're going to do a campaign. I'm in the real estate industry. If I do a campaign to generate leads to buy a grouping of houses, there's no guarantee I'll get phone calls on those campaigns. Sure. But we need to do it in spite of the lack of guarantee, and do it because we can use a certain set of data points to make calculated decisions. Yep. And then we have to move through faith. So absolutely right, man. The way we think about stuff needs to shape. If we're not willing to shape the way we think, and we have no discipline over the way we think, we're feeding the flesh every day instead of feeding the spirit. And that's a whole different piece that I get to.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I tell my coaching students that goals without actions are nothing but dreams. Dreams don't get you anywhere in life. You got to have goals, but then more importantly, you got to take action. You got to be doing things every day, just like your father said, that are moving you forward, because money follows motion. Money will actually be attracted to people that are successful, that are out there doing things, connecting, doing events out there in the community. Because if you're not doing that, you're just sitting on your ass and you're watching, like you said, reruns of Netflix, you're just going to retreat. And that's what happens to so many people. They get to a point where they're confronted with adversity. Yeah, it's hard. Okay. And then what they do is they go home, they sit on the couch. They hope that that difficulty goes away and that somehow some magic will happen and they'll end up with a windfall, or they'll end up with money in the bank. And what happens? They dig themselves deeper into debt. They get behind on payments. They run the risk of having their vehicle repoed, or worse yet, losing the roof over their head. And their life just gets sucked into a black hole, rather than going out every day and sharpening, their skills, listening to podcasts, attending events, hiring people like you, and really immersing themselves with the knowledge. Because at the end of the day, you kind of touch upon this in your book, and that is, you don't know what you don't know, right? If
you don't know, man.
You don't know. And I believe that a lot of times it's better to be the person on the outside of the picture frame looking in than it is to be the entrepreneur spinning all these plates on the inside of the picture frame, figuring what the hell do I need to do? You don't know what you need to do, because like you said, you're so immersed in that you really don't know. Now, one thing
hold on, let me ask you a question, because you just said something powerful. You just said attracting wealth, attracting money, attracting all this stuff into your life. You can chase it or you can attract it.
Absolutely.
The difference comes down to your intentionality. Too many people don't have enough intention and drive towards that piece. If you know you need to make $10,000 this month, you need to put that in your mind as like that's your only obsessed freaking goal that month. And you need to have so much intention that everywhere you look, however you call this, you know, I know it's called the reticular activating system, the RAS filter in your brain. What you focus on is what you're going after. If you focus on making 10 grand that month, everything in front of you will look like an opportunity. But if you're not focused that intentionally on what you need to accomplish, and you're not writing this stuff down, you're not obsessing over the result, you're going to pass by all kinds of stuff. So how do you see this, man? Do you see the attraction versus the chase? Because I think so many people think it's a chase, and I'm telling you it's not. What's your thought on that?
No, I definitely believe that you attract other people to you. It's an attraction. I believe, number one, of course, in using a method of explaining what I do that creates an immediate attraction to other people. They're of similar beliefs. It's something I learned, of course, from Coach Burt. Tom Love, who was in the insurance business, created what he calls the explanation of service. You ask me, what do you do, Brad? I don't tell you right away, because the second I tell you what I do, I've commoditized myself. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're a CPA, a doctor, a real estate agent. If I said, I'm a real estate agent, I'm not a person of interest. I'm like every other real estate agent you've ever met. But if you say, Brad, what do you do? And I say, Ben, before I tell you, let me tell you what I believe. I believe everybody in life deserves a great coach. People that are coached will outperform, outsell, and more importantly, out-earn their peers. Let me explain to you why I believe that. And then I go into a little story and say, if I could do that for you, Ben, just like I did for Jack and all these other people, is it something you want to learn more about? Every time I say that, people's like, hell yeah, I want to know how you can help me, just like you helped this dude make $250,000. Because now what I've done is I've left with value. Because really what I've learned is when people say, Ben, what can you do for me? They ask, what is it you do? Really what they want to know is, what can you do for me? Are you somebody that can help me bridge the gap to get where I want to be in life? And if the answer is yes, then obviously there is a discussion that can take place with that. But I definitely believe that there is an attraction. I believe that if you are out there, you're going to attract success. You're going to attract wealth. It's discussed in the book, The Secret. That's why The Secret became one of the top bestsellers, right? It was discovered, of course, by W. Clement Stone and Napoleon Hill when they went out, and Andrew Carnegie hired him to interview successful people. There is a definite attraction. And it's like you said, you got to get it straight up here. You know, it's like Brad Lee said, the biggest sale you have to make in life is the sale to yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror, I believe, and say, I'm done with complacency. I am done with mediocrity. And today is the day I'm going to move forward and take massive action. One of the big defining moments that really changed me was a few years ago when I was actually watching Matthew McConaughey win the Academy Award in 2014. And if you haven't seen the video, it is phenomenal, because he gets up there, he's holding, of course, the statue, and he said, there's 3 people here I want to thank today. The first is, I want to thank God. He said, you know, I'm a spiritual dude. I prayed for the success, and God has blessed my career. The second person I want to thank is my beautiful wife, Camelia, who's sitting over here in the front row, and he points to her and he says, you know, she's blessed me with a wonderful family. She's a wonderful rock in my life. And there's a third person I want to thank as well. And then the funny thing is he pauses. And if you're sitting in that audience, you're probably looking around like, who's he going to name? Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt or Jack Nicholson? He says, the next person I want to thank is me, because I'm chasing a better version of myself 5 years from now. And I want to wake up every day to be a better person, to be inspired, to be working harder. And when you look at some of the roles that this guy has played, where he's lost 40 pounds, or he's, you know, been obviously the dude that was on the Wolf of Wall Street, he has taken on so many roles where he's more, if we're literally, that's what drives him. It's becoming a better person and really chasing a better person and a better vision of himself, which is exactly kind of the message that both of us have been discussing here, is you've got to want it so badly that you're willing to make the sacrifices to be successful, right? Everybody looks at Ben. What do they see? They see the Lambo. They see the nice watch. They see the big house. It's like the iceberg effect. All they see is the shit that's visible. They haven't seen the grit, the hustle, the late nights, all of the stuff that's below the surface of the ocean that you can't see, that's part of that iceberg, that really is the much larger mass. And that's what I believe. I believe that number one, you've got to create the belief that you are going to become successful. I will be a millionaire and I will do whatever it takes and I will chase that relentlessly. And then you just don't give up. Because I tell people the journey to success is a lonely journey, right? When I wrote my book, I expected the first group of people to run out and buy my book would be who? My siblings, my best friends, my aunts and uncles, my mom. None of that happened. The reason is that they never saw me as an author. They never saw me as a coach because I had another career before I became very successful doing what I'm doing now. Now they're some of my biggest raging fans. But the funny thing is I had to block out the noise. I had to turn my back to the naysayers, all the haters, right? There's going to be a lot of them on that journey before you attain your first million and you continue going. And then everyone's like, holy crap, the dude actually did what he set off to do. And then what's funny is they start hiring you as their coach. And that's kind of the funny thing. But I believe a lot of it is a shift in habits and instilling habits and then just increasing the intensity over that, because I believe that your habits ultimately will help drive a new belief system. One thing I do want to touch upon just real quickly is, you made your fortune really in real estate. When you started, you probably didn't think, hey, I'm going to do one house and I'm going to do another, and then I'm going to scale and build this multi-million-dollar company. But where was it in that journey that you realized, hey, this for me is a way really to create wealth? Was it after, your first house and you flipped it and you made some money and you wholesaled it? Or was it really after you'd been at it for a couple of years where you really realized, hey, I put systems in places, I can replicate this and I can build something substantial?
Well, I didn't have any shortcuts, right? So I just started with one little duplex. I bought that at, I was 21 years old, bought a property. I was able to get into it for no money down. I've gone a whole bunch of real estate courses and trainings and stuff like that. And I would buy every weekend seminar thing I could find. And I got into this place and it was no money down. And it was costing me like $160 a month plus utilities to live in this duplex. And I just realized like, this isn't that hard. So there's no pivotal moment where, hey, I'm going to make millions at this. It was a progressive thing. I think that's how business works. You do one and then you do two and then you say, can I do four? And then can I do six? And for me, I was willing to multiply instead of add. I think a lot of people get stuck on this addition metrics where it becomes linear. Like, I'm just going to do one house forever. And I thought that way too. I read this book. I think it was Kiyosaki said that if you want to become a millionaire, what you do is you go and you borrow $1 million and you buy $1 million worth of real estate. And then eventually your tenants will pay it down. And then when they do that in 25 years, you're going to be a millionaire. And I thought, okay, that's a pretty interesting logic. So I understood the idea of compounding benefit at the beginning when so I knew that I just had to get the right level of speed. Like, I'm very much to the point, speed, willing to move quickly and adapt. And it's a benefit and a negative. The pro is that I'm into a business quickly and I'm testing the waters before most people. The negative is sometimes in the past, I will let stuff go that maybe I should have stuck with a little bit longer. So I bought a house, then a second one, then a third one, then a fourth one, then a fifth one. And I started creating my own niche based on what I was doing. And then I remember there was a moment probably about 8 years ago where it just started picking up. And I was like, okay, well, I can get more of these things. I can raise more money. So it was a progressive learning, man. Like, I started a cleaning business and I would scrub floors and clean carpets at 2 a.m. And I remember just always thinking, like, how can I do this better? So I think that's really the answer for this stuff is a lot of people want to do more. More is not the answer. It's better. Do it better first, and then do more. Bradley talked about that. I remember seeing him talk about that at GrowthCon a few years back. He's like, just do more and do it better. So it's been a progressive thing, and one thing's led to another, then another. Then I started a mortgage business, then a flipping business, and then we started getting into a wholesaling thing. And dude, I already made $1 million before anybody knew who I was. I wasn't on social media. I kept my head down and I just pushed. And I was 30, just before my 31st birthday. I had $1 million, and I just kept going and kept going and kept going. So it's been a very progressive thing. What I did know from day one was I needed to push harder than other people. It's simple. And I needed to push harder, but also more intelligently. So I was never a good a student in school because I just didn't give a rip. I don't care about math. I failed 2 times because I was not interested. So I think that kids aren't broken. They're just bored. And I was bored. I wasn't broken. And the moment that those digits had a dollar sign in front of them, they got interesting because those digits and those dollar signs led me to a different life that didn't have necessarily growing up, where I could choose what box of cereal I wanted to have. I could choose what car I wanted to drive. And it wasn't just like, this is what you have available. This is what your choice can be. Right. So it was in my early 20s, man. I just kept pushing. I stayed focused. I kept my head down. I didn't make a lot of noise, but it really wasn't until I understood business. And I got into some, hired a mentor. I paid $50,000 for a mentorship. And some people are looking at me like, dude, you're a young kid. You paid 50 grand. You must be crazy. I just knew that there was stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, man. You just don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And until you suck up your ego and you ask for help, you're never going to realize it. So I just wanted to get into a room with people that figured out what I didn't know. And it opened up my entire mind to a whole different world of opportunity, how to scale, how to hire, how to create process, how to put a real business in place where I can sit here with you in my garage at 2:00 in the afternoon and the companies are running. The real estate firm, the education firm, the branding firm, like those are all running without me having to be in the offices.
Right.
So I think it's progressive. What you're looking at, like you mentioned, the iceberg, you're looking at 12 years of progressive growth every day, just pushing a little bit more. And you're getting a snapshot, but I'm just trying to be 1% better every day in my mind, my body, my spirit. I've lost 40 pounds. I work out 2 times a day. I keep my body in check. I spend at least an hour and a half by myself every day, just thinking about stuff. I'll go for a walk. I'll think about business. I value time a lot, but I want to create every day, never consume. So honestly, one of my big things is I don't consume people's content. I really don't. I don't know who did what. I don't pay attention. I don't watch the news. I'm busy just creating stuff every day. And as a result, I get to live the life I want without drama.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. One thing I do want to touch upon as we kind of wrap up is you figure this out and you actually talk about it. There's a couple of pages in your book. I was 23. I started an oil company. Didn't know anything at all about running a business, but I just was relentless. I got on the phones. I raised millions of dollars, taught other people how to close and raise millions of dollars. But what I learned is OPM, other people's money. So many people out there that lead ordinary lives don't realize how much money is out there looking for great opportunities. How instrumental was using other people's money in building your wealth and becoming successful to ultimately get where you are today?
Dude, it was huge. Absolutely huge. There's no shortage of money. There's no scarcity of money. There's a scarcity of creativity and a scarcity of people willing to go and get it. Do you realize how much money is literally floating around the ecosystem if you simply know how to ask, where to ask? I raised over, again, I'm 23, 24 years old. I started raising private money because the bank told me, we can't give you more than 5 mortgages. You don't qualify. You're self-employed. You need 30% down and all these things that I just couldn't do. So I started raising private capital. I started having conversations with regular folk who had money sitting in RSPs for you guys as 401ks, people making next to nothing in the stock market. And dude, it's simple. I raised over $27 million and I put it into real estate deals. And that's what happened. I never qualified. I never went to the bank for a loan. I stopped going to the bank at basically the age of 24 because I realized it wasn't for me. So, but you got to live in your own reality to do that stuff. And for people that don't know, money is not the problem. It's a willingness to take that money and really do something significant with it. If you invest in yourself, the capital's all there. There's enough trust companies. There's enough, registered and non-registered fund companies out there. There's private individuals, private equity. Money ain't the issue. It's, do you have the balls to actually do something with it and go and ask for it? And too many people are living in a world of my 9 to 5, my 50 grand a year, and other people are just raising millions. So it's not about deserving, and it's not even about merit. It's about you simply asking and putting yourself out there and being willing to be vulnerable and just make stuff happen.
Well, I think that's the difference between a salesperson and a closer. You figured it out when you were young. I figured it out when I was young because I was on the phone raising millions. It enabled me to build a huge oil company. And then, of course, when I got into real estate and got to the point where I had over a dozen rental properties, just like you said, the lenders wouldn't give me money. Why? Because I had too much debt and I had too many properties, and I had to do the same thing. I started putting together limited partnerships, started scaling into multifamily and bigger deals, and get to the point where we're doing $25–50 million funds. The funny thing though is I think most people don't feel worthy. Why? It's because I'm stuck here in my $50,000, $100,000 a year job, and I'm going to go talk to this dude that's making $5 or $10 million. Oh, he's way above me. He's never going to have interest in. The funny thing is you've got to sell yourself. You've got to get to the point where you are an equal to that person. I had a very wealthy doctor that changed my life, where this dude was actually investing with Sheldon Adelson in casinos in Vegas. Now, of course, Sheldon owns the Venetian. I think he's like the 28th wealthiest person in the world. And finally, after talking to this guy for multiple times, for whatever reason, he would not invest. And I think it was the concern about drilling a dry hole, And finally, one night, I just said, Dr. Schnack, it takes two things to invest in an oil well. And he said, what? I said, it takes balls and money. Which of the two do you like? And then I bit my tongue. And the funny thing, he said, tell me again how much 4 units in your program costs. I said, go get your checkbook. Most kids at 25 would not say that to a dude that's probably worth $100 million. But here's what I've learned. Closers have balls. Salespeople lack them. And you obviously prove that you've got them and you've been very successful. Now, one last question before we wrap up is Albert Preciado, who of course is out on the West Coast. You probably know good old Al. Said one of the best decisions he ever made in his journey as an entrepreneur was that red Ferrari sitting out in front of his building every day because it's a billboard. Mm-hmm. You've got a white Lambo. Has that been a liability or has that been an asset in your business?
So Albert says that both of his Lambos are prostitutes, right? That's what he says. He says both of them are prostitutes. He uses them like prostitutes. So, that's not my vernacular. That's his. Yeah. But dude, I'll tell you this. If you know what to do with it, it's a massive asset. Okay. If you know what to do with it. If you're smart, the one thing I probably would have studied 10 years ago was being a better marketer. Whereas these days I understand the value of it. Sure. So if you can really get into the granular, it's been probably one of the highest ROI, actually the highest ROI purchase. And now we're buying more stuff. So I've got a brand new Porsche Turbo sitting out here in the driveway. We've got a few other things. I've got, motorcycles. Here's one right here. Yeah. So we've got all kinds of things, and it's not about just stuff. Yeah. It's about understanding the value of having stuff. If all you do is use it for your own vanity, don't buy one. Yeah. But if you understand what it can do for you and your brand and so forth, dude, it's a phenomenal investment if you know what you're doing. And I use that term lightly because most people just get confused. But
I get it. I mean, I'm a Porsche guy. I've had Jaguars. I've had, of course, the motorcycles. Of course, I'm also big into watches. Got the Audemars Piguet, got the Hublot, got the Big Bang. And it's right, man. Sometimes the toughest decisions I make every day is which damn nice watch am I going to wear out the door? But it's all about using it, obviously, to promote the success, because obviously that's what people are looking for. So as we wrap up, let me ask you, number one, everybody get the book. Great read. I want to thank Ben for sending it to me before we did the podcast today. It is a wonderful, wonderful book. It will help get your head straight. But where can people go to find you on Instagram? And also, where can people go to connect with you and become a follower of your wonderful podcast as well?
I love it. We got all kinds of stuff. Just head over to humble.ceo. That's the website. Everything is there. Humble.ceo and Instagram, Ben Humble CEO. If you get on those two sites, there's everything there. And I appreciate you, man. I know you've been on my podcast and it's been a phenomenal conversation we've had, and I would say to your audience, if you don't have what you have, if you don't have what you want, do what my wife and I did 2 years ago. We decided that the people in our sphere were just not helping us get to where we needed to get. So we basically ripped that tether and we started focusing on just going to masterminds and meeting brand new people. So all of my allies today, friends and allies, are people that I've met in masterminds. So if your circle isn't great, literally start focusing on building a new circle, a new network of people that you can connect with. And that'll make the world of difference to folks that start changing your mindset, your beliefs, and your actions.
Great message. It's like I tell people, you are the average of the 5 people you're spending most of your time with. If you want to know where you are in life, look at your friends. And all you got to do, folks, is just get a new network of friends and boom, tremendous transformation can take place. Ben, thank you so much, man. You've been wonderful. If you're not following Ben Muresan, the Humble CEO, go to his website, get his book, become a follower. This dude, just like me, will help change and transform your life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, pal.